Week 13 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 12 defense DST units. I'm ranking number 1, the Dallas Cowboys. So this Cowboy defense, one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. This season, a lot of turnovers they created, a lot of pick sixes, fumble recovery, touchdowns. And this week here, I know it's a tougher matchup than it's been over the last 2 weeks with easier matchups versus Carolina Panthers and last week versus the Washington Commanders. But this week, Seattle Seahawks come to town. Thursday Night Football. We know Thursday Night Football games are usually high scoring more times than not, but Seattle, they've had their problems and fair share on offense. DK Metcalf, Lockett, and Geno Smith all have had down seasons, and this offensive line isn't all that great. So I think this Cowboy team could get pressure on Geno early and often. We saw San Francisco last week have success, and when you got playmakers like DeRon Bland, Micah Parsons, Stephon Gilmore on this defense and causing havoc, it could be a tough day for an offense. So once again, I got the Cowboys at 1. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. So this Chief defense, one of the best units in the leagues, obviously. Only giving up 18 points per game is Kansas City. And this week here, it's a tougher matchup at a decent offense of the Green Bay Packers. But we'll see what Jordan Love is made of versus one of the better defenses in the league. So the Chiefs here, they get to the quarterback with Chris Jones. The secondary has tightened the screws, and they've played good football over the last few weeks here. And right now, this Kansas City Chiefs team, this is the stretch for them where they're trying to get into the playoffs, obviously. We're one of those 2 seeds. So this week here, Green Bay, I know Sunday night game, it's going to be freezing out there. But I think this defense is going to have a good game plan. They're going to make it tougher for Jordan Love and put in a good performance. Number 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, one of the best Ds in the league in terms of holding teams down to mid-teens, low 20s all season long. And they've been outgained every game in offense pretty much is Pittsburgh. But they're still finding ways to win, and that has to do with TJ Watt leading this defense for the Steelers team. So this week here, a good matchup versus the Cardinals coming to town. I know they got some playmakers. Kyler Murray is a quarterback that can make some plays with his legs and has a pretty decent arm. You got Hollywood Brown, who's pretty decent, and Trey McBride, a breakout tight end this season. But I still think this Steelers team at home, where they've had dominance over the last couple seasons, and their defense has always been good, is Pittsburgh. This week they go out there once again, and they play their Steelers type of football, and they're going to create more turnovers, I believe, as well, versus Arizona team. Number 4, the Miami Dolphins. So this Dolphin defense came off a great performance on Black Friday last week at the New York Jets, including a Hail Mary pick 6 for 99 yards, which you never see, obviously. So this week they got a matchup with the Commanders that give up the second most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So Sam Howell, he's a solid quarterback, in my opinion, that could move the football down the field and make some plays. But this Commander offense still turn the football over. Howell's more of a gunslinger, and they've had fumbling issues as well as this Commander team. So Miami this season in streaming option type of ball games have stepped up and played good football. And last week they did it, and I think this week once again they'll do it and have a good performance. Number 5, the New York Jets. So this New York Jet defense has pretty much been the reason why the Jets have won 4 games this season. But the last couple weeks, this defense has broke a little bit, where they haven't gone out there and played great football, giving up over 25 points in the last 2 games to the Buffalo Bills and then to the Miami Dolphins last week. But this week here, good matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons for this New York Jet defense. So the Falcons, we know, have had trouble all season moving the football. Desmond Ritter's in there, quarterback, but I think this Jet defense could get it after Desmond Ridder and make some plays. So this New York Jet team, it's going to be a tight type of ball game once again in MetLife. And this week, I think they make some plays and have one of the better performances than they've had in the last few weeks. And I got them at 5. Number 6, staying in the same game, the Atlanta Falcons. So this Falcon DST has been a solid unit for the most part this season. And last week, a nice pick 6 and a big victory versus the New Orleans Saints to get first place in that division, even though we know that division in the NFC South is one of the worst divisions in pro football in many seasons. Well, one of the worst winning percentages. So this week here, good matchup at the New York Jets. We know this New York Jet offense hasn't been good all season, even though they got good players in Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. But the quarterback play has been poor, banged up offensive line. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if this game's like a 15-12 game or something between these 2 teams, where both offenses really aren't that good. And this Falcon team at least has some playmakers and could get a few plays on Tim Boyle in this one. So this week, I have them at 6. Number 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as a 1-week streaming option only, I think could go out there and have a pretty decent ball game. The Carolina Panthers fired head coach Frank Reich. Reich just couldn't get the job done, and it's not 100% his fault. Bryce Young, many people thought, was going to be a great quarterback right away out of college football, but it's gone the other way with C.J. Stroud being that guy for the Houston Texans. So this week here, this Buck defense still could get after it. After the quarterback, in my opinion, is this Tampa Bay defense. And Bryce Young's made a lot of mistakes this season, and there's not really a threat on this offense besides Adam Thielen and Chuba Hubbard for a few games this season. So right now, I think Tampa Bay goes out there and they have a good ball game. Number 8, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this Jaguar defense, they're one of the better teams in creating turnovers and making plays this season. And this week, Monday Night Football home game, big game for Jacksonville. I know they've won 6 out of 7 games, which is great. And Cincinnati, they still have good pieces in offense, obviously. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, if he returns in this game, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon. But Jake Browning's the starting quarterback for this Cincinnati Bengal team the rest of the way. And last week, obviously, it was a tough matchup for Browning in the Cincinnati offense versus one of the better defenses in the league in the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this week here, Jacksonville, I still think, puts in a good performance. Get a few sacks on Browning, maybe a few turnovers. And this game, I could see a grinded-out type of performance as well. Number 9, Los Angeles Chargers. So this Charger defense, DST's got a great matchup this week at the Patriots. And this season, where they've had good matchups, is Los Angeles as a streaming option. Versus the Jets, we've seen it. We saw versus the Raiders early in the season as well. They've gone out there and had some decent fantasy performances. So this week here, as a streaming option versus one of the worst offenses in the league of the Patriots, I think they could go into Gillette Stadium, make some plays. Khalil Mack's still one of the better pass rushers in the league. So right now, New England, they've had a problem all season at quarterback with Mac Jones. We don't know if it's going to be Jones or Bailey Zapp, but either way, I think this defense goes out there, can make a few plays and put up some fantasy points. And this week as a streaming option, I like them in this number 9 spot. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns. So this Brown DST, one of the best defenses all around in all pro football is with Cleveland. But last week, I know the Denver Broncos had a nice game plan and they executed and put up a decent margin on the scoreboard. So this week, a good matchup with the Rams. I know this Ram offense last week broke out and won 37-14 in that one versus the Arizona Cardinals. But the Arizona Cardinals aren't the Cleveland Browns defense. They really get to the quarterback with one of the best pass rushers and possibly defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett. One of the better corners in the league, Denzel Ward, Zadarius Smith on this defense. And this week here versus a weak offensive line of the Rams, I think they're going to get pressure on Stafford. And we know Stafford's always been good for picks throughout his career, where he's been a gunslinger. So this week, Cleveland, I think this is a grinded out game over there in Los Angeles on the fast turf. Number 11 staying in the same game, the Los Angeles Rams. So this Ram defense is a 1-week use only as a streaming option. I think could crack this top 12. So Los Angeles, I know this season the defense really hasn't been good. I know they haven't gone out there really and put up fantasy points as this Ram defense. But this week versus Cleveland with a banged up offensive line and also as well Amari Cooper banged up. And at the quarterback position, we don't know if it's going to be Thompson Robinson who's banged up with a concussion, Joe Flacco or P.J. Walker, but any of those 3 options aren't really scary to opposing defenses. I think the Rams at home in this one could make a few plays. Aaron Donald could get his hands on whoever the quarterback's going to be, and I think they're a decent streaming option this week. The final defense DST unit on rankings, the Indianapolis Colts. So this Colt team is a 1-week use only. I think it's a decent streaming option as well. Tennessee, one of the worst offenses in the league, one of the worst offensive lines as well. They can't really move the football down the field, which I thought they can once Will Levis came in and had that monster first game. So right now, Indianapolis, like I said, their defense hasn't been great this season, but in a division matchup, I think it's going to be a grinded-out type of game between these two teams who've had their offensive struggles throughout the season. And I think Indianapolis in this one could surprise a little bit and put up some fantasy points. So that's the top 12 defense DST units I'm ranking here for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.